I'm your host, Raji, and this is iSMM365. Thank you for joining us.
Greetings from the Scholastic Motivation Ministries Mathematics Olympiad team. My name is Betty Lewis, and we are beginning a series of recordings to give detailed information about the competition. Let me introduce to you one of our members, Sister Jamese Durden. She is a fifth grade teacher, and she is the coordinator for level one, which is grades 3 and 4, and level 2, that's grades 5 and 6 of the Math Olympiad. And she will be giving you the details for this part of the competition. All right, Jamise, it's in your hands.
Thank you. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. Okay, hello everyone. Like she said, like Dr. Lewis said, I am Jamese Durden, and I am the assistant coordinator, and I coordinate level 1 and level 2 of the Math Olympiad test. So level 1, as she said, is ages or grades 3 through 4, and level 2 is grades 5th and 6th grade. So, the introduction. So, what we do in the Math Olympiad is we want to build confidence, especially for those ages. A lot of level 1 students, those third and fourth graders, are just beginning to do standardized testing. So, here in the Math Olympiad, we want to build confidence. We want to help those students develop critical thinking skills as it relates to math. And we want to encourage academic excellence, which I will talk about in this presentation and how we can do that, as well as we want to strengthen the discipline that those students have. So when we hear the word math, a lot of us feel like, or parents may feel like, this math is new, this is different. How am I going to do this with my child? But I will talk about how we will go through those different steps that we can take so we can build confidence. We want our scholars to excel in math, not only math in those STEM subjects, but in particularly math. So this would be encouragement for parents as well. So this is what we do. We want to build a core knowledge or a core background in certain areas. So when we look at level 3 and level 1 and level 2, those third graders and those fourth graders, we deal with those that are ages 8 to 9, and some may be turning 10 depending on where their birthday falls. But that key group 8 to 9, these are third graders, or they're third graders that just finished third grade and they're going to fourth grade, or their fourth grade is going to fifth grade. We need a strong multiplication and division fluency. Those students, these are things that are not on the test per se, but they will help the students in that area. So they may not do your multiplication facts 0 through 12. They may not have to do those, but they would need those skills in order to master some of the items on the test. So we need a strong multiplication and division fluency. So what does that look like? That looks like using flashcards, using different games, quizzes, giving those drill sheets. Can they answer those multiplication facts? All the facts of a set, like your 3 times tables, can they answer all that less than a minute or even 30 seconds? Does it take them 3 to 10 seconds to answer that multiplication fact? For example, 3 times 4, the response time should be 12. We should not be waiting so long to give that answer. Next, word problem comprehension. And in my career as a fifth grade teacher, we had, in the state of Alabama where I'm from, we have a disconnect between math and reading when it should not be. I tell my students you need reading comprehension in order to master those word problems. And not only that, you need to be able to comprehend. So if you have a word problem, what is it asking for you to do? Who is it talking about? What are the quantities that are given? What are the quantities that either need to be added, subtracted, or multiplied, or you need to divide? Okay, because we're at a younger level where we don't have formulas yet. So next thing is we need to also understand basic fraction understanding. So that means recognizing a unit fraction. It's the shaded part is your numerator. It's the shaded part 1, 2, 3, your denominator. How many parts of a whole do you have? And again, this is third grade and fourth grade. So basic understanding. That means knowing your equivalent fractions. 1/2 is also equivalent to 4/8. Can they see that on the paper? Can they see the actual model of it when it comes to that? And then we have place value, that each place value is times 10 the next place value. So your ones place 1 times 10, that gives you your 10 place. Your tens place 10 times 10, 100, that gives you your 100 place. And understanding that how each place value increases by 10, as well as what I'm figuring out when it comes to regrouping for adding and subtracting. Do we understand when we regroup that what we have to, as we used to say in the South, we say carry, but we know that we need to regroup when we need to take the next digit to the next place value, and why that is crucial. And I have seen it before. We don't need to have 2 digits trying to fit in one place value. You cannot put 2 digits in the ones place or the 10 place or the 100. Each place value only has 1 digit in there. All right, so next, let's move to ages 10 to 12. And again, this age is kind of mixed because sometimes we may have fourth graders that are turning 10, depending on their age, but they still are taking the level 1 test. And we may have some that are 10 turning 11 and they're taking the level 2 test. So now from the last slide, we talked about level 1 and we talked about word problems, but now we need to understand, we need to talk about multi-step word problems. Okay. And excuse me, I admitted this, but also in level 1, we talked about fractions, but you do also have the skill of geometry. And that's basic things like knowing your shapes, knowing all your shapes and how to classify your shapes, and knowing the characteristics of your shapes. And what we mean by those 2-dimensional shapes in level 1, we mean like square. We mean, even if a circle, just knowing the character, you can know the characteristics of a circle, doesn't hurt. But square, triangle, rectangle, knowing those and how to classify those. Why is that important? Because when you get into level 2 and you have to find the volume, you need a strong core or background knowledge in 2-dimensional shapes in order to do 3-dimensional shapes. Because now on the level 2 test, you're going to be as in level 1, you had to find the area. Now you got to continue to find the area, the total area, as well as the volume. And so multi-step word problems is very important. And then comprehending. For an example, the word problem may not ask to what's the volume of this 3-dimensional shape of this rectangular prism. It may ask you, it may say a building is 11 feet wide, 12 feet long, and it's a 5-story building. So if you comprehend and know 5-story, that's height. Now I have my formula for length times width times height, and I can find the volume. But the first step you need to realize that I need to comprehend what does this word problem want me to find. It wants me to find a volume. How can I get everything I need for my formula? I have to comprehend that volume. The word height could be used as, they can say story, they can say tall. There are different words they can use besides just saying the height of something. So you need to make sure you understand it. And when we talk about multi-step word problem, you may have to, and I'm going to use volume again because I did not hit geometry too much, but for volume example, they may give you the volume in the word problem, and then they may give you the length and the width, but then they ask you to find the height. So now we have a multi-step word problem where I have to multiply what was given to me and then divide that by the volume I was given, and that's going to give me my final answer. There are other things where it may have you to, we don't see as many conversions, but you may have to convert something. You may have to, and I know that is big in some of your southern states. Other things you may have to do, you may have to divide, then you also may have to subtract at the end or give the total answer. So those are multi-step word problems. Next, we want to move into fraction, decimals, and percentages. I know here in the South, when I am helping or supporting math, I always tell my students that, hey, these are like cousins. So you had a basic understanding of fractions in level 1, or you should have. You understand what a unit fraction is and equivalent fractions. But now we're looking at, okay, let's multiply fractions. Let's divide fractions. Let's add, let's subtract fractions, as well as the same thing for decimals. You have to add, subtract, multiply, divide. Can we do all 4 of those operations? And then can we simplify our fractions? Can we also understand that to simplify a fraction, you can divide a fraction if the numerator is larger than the denominator, or even vice versa? Can you divide the fraction out and get a decimal and see it in another way? Because sometimes the answer may ask you, or the question may ask you to put it in decimal form or put it in fraction form. And then percentages, how do we go from a decimal or go from a fraction to a decimal, and then also turn that into a percentage? And then that also helps, again, when you talk about fractions, and when you think of, like, I think about a pie chart that is out of 100%, and then you have to find the percentage of this, but you can use fractions to help you find the percentages that may be missing that you may have to find. So and then we have ratios, and we have order or operation. And those are things that you can look up, that you can talk to your scholar, your student about when they're at home. And I want to reiterate this. I am from Alabama, but this test is used at this time. I know some people don't like it, but we use the national standard. So what the federal government has that all states take from, we use the basics. So in Alabama, we have Alabama College and Career Readiness Standards, but they're taken from the actual Common Core standards. Some people say, some people don't like to say, but we take them from the national standards. So we're not state specific. So what I do in Alabama may be different from what's done in Texas, but we are taking the standards from what the federal government is asking us to use for our standards. And I wanted to bring that in. If I could give this example, we were just in Phoenix last year. So in preparation for the test, there are extra standards that Phoenix has for the state of Arizona that they have, that their scholars should know, versus what the federal government asks. So then it's like, well, we're not going to test on this standard, or you're not going to see a question on this standard. You're going to see a question on what we are taking the standards for, because we want it to be fair across the board. And as well, this is a standardized test, and we want to prepare our students, we want to prepare our little saints for what they are going to see if they take the ACT or the SAT. All of it is on the same playing field. Colleges use that same Excel. So next, and we're moving along. Think like an Olympiad scholar. So the things that we want to take from this in our purpose, as we build that confidence, as we develop those critical thinking skills, we want to make sure that they can stay focused. Part of standardized testing, that even though they're in the 3rd and 4th grade, 5th and 6th grade, they will have to do standardized tests in their state. So part of that is staying focused. Can you sit in a room with paper, pencil, one day even a computer, and look, read, and answer those questions? And we do about practice tests, we do about 20 questions, and then we do 25, close to 25 more, maybe more than 25 for the actual Math Olympiad test. And that may sound like a lot or a few, depending on who you are, but that is a long time to sit. So in the National AIM Convention, we have students that sometimes test for 2 hours. So you need to be able to stay focused, not fidget, not look around, because even though at this time we're not timed, there are other competitions that are there that people could be involved in. And, we are gone by 11:45, 12 o'clock. So we want to make sure you're staying focused, that you are working carefully. So in my age groups, level 1 and 2, there's no calculator, because we have to make sure you know how to do the basic operation, which is add, subtract, multiply, and divide. So we need to make sure you know how to do that, whether it's fractions, whether it's decimals. We need to make sure you know how to do that. So you need to make sure you are working carefully, that you are taking your time, that you manage your time wisely. We've had some students that have had to leave in order to do a competition and come right back. So we want to make sure that they are managing their time wise, that they're not just doodling or just sticking in space. And as a level 1 coordinator, I see a lot with our 8-year-olds and 9-year-olds that come in and they're just so happy to be in another state or just out of town, that they just stare, that they draw, write Bible verses on the test paper. We have seen a lot, but we want to also make sure, as we're managing that time wisely, that we are checking our work thoroughly. Because one number, how many know that one number, one digit, the decimal in the wrong place is the wrong answer? And I'm sorry, but close enough only counts in horseshoes. Close enough does not count in math. And we want to be true, because as we're preparing our students for, academic excellence, that is how the test is going to be. And where we know that we're all the Church of God in Christ and that we are grading the test, standardized tests are graded by computers that are not biased. So we cannot be biased. And even, I think this student meant this, or they circled A, erased it kind of, but then they kind of got C circled. So did they do A or did they do C? But really C is shaded in more than A, but I know the answer. So we have to be honest. We have to make sure we're circling the correct answer. And then if you have to show your work, make sure you're circling a final answer, because you can have all these different answers. And I know for division, especially in level 1, you may divide one thing and have this answer. You may have divided several times to get the answer, but then you have one final answer. So we need to make sure that we circling that and that we're checking it thoroughly as we go through the actual test. And this is very important as it relates to our level 1 scholars, because again, it's their first time probably even taking a standardized test. All right, next, as we continue to think like an Olympiad scholar, excuse me, let's think success tips. So when you come in to take the test, even if it's the practice test, and these are tips that are just good for your child while they're in school, read the question carefully. Read all questions carefully. Make sure you understand what is being asked. And it could, again, going back to another slide, they could say, put your final answer as a decimal, write it as a decimal, but you have worked it out as a fraction and did not remember to change it into a decimal. And we're not following directions. So we need to have everything in decently in order. So make sure you read those questions carefully. And again, you do have time to do that. Show your work neatly. And I know I asked for you all to circle as you do your test, but in math, we have a lot of scratch paper. We use that. We're thinking we're putting all our thoughts on the page. So make sure that your work is neat. I need to understand a 1 is a 1, a 2 is a 2, because sometimes 2s can look like a 6. Sometimes a 7 can look like a 1, or it could look like a 4. I need to know if it's a 1 or 4. I need to know if it's a 9. Close your 9s off, because that 9 can look like a 4, and 4 is different from 9 when you're grading a paper. Review your answers. You have time to review your answers to make sure that everything is circled that needs to be circled, or bubbled in that needs to be bubbled in. Make sure that everything is clear so that those that are grading the test know what they are grading and what they are looking for. So make sure, again, you review those answers. Even I've had a student do this, circle it, draw an arrow. This is my final answer. So I've had a student to do that. So make sure that you know that somebody that does not know your handwriting can understand that what you're trying to convey. because the test is multiple choice, but we also have problems that we ask for you to show the work, and it's not multiple choice. You may have to fill in a blank, or you may have to select more than one, or all that apply, or you just have to put the answer there. So we want to make sure that we circle the answer and identify that as our final answer. Stay calm and confident. If you come into the Math Olympiad and you come into that room, you have a passion for math, we pray, and we know that, and you have taken the first step in taking this test, and you're taking a national test. Thousands of kids could take this test, but you get to take this test at the National AIM Convention in the Scholastic Motivation Ministries area. And hey, you're here, so make sure you're confident and you stay calm. One thing, we are teachers, some of us are educators, or we work in education, but we are all brothers and sisters in the Church of God in Christ. So stay calm. We are not here to hurt you. We're here to help you. Because if you start, like in my area, I now have students that started in level 1. They are now in level 3. And so they have gone from a 3rd grader and now an 8th grader. And we have seen their confidence grow because they know they're going to come in, they're going to take a test. What we like to do, we also provide practice tests. So you get practice sit down test that you actually get to do that's similar to the Math Olympiad, to that final day when we do tests. Also, all of these things that I have said, make sure you use that to prepare before the test. So again, those areas were multiplication and division, fact fluency, word problem comprehension, place value, geometry, as well as measurement. I didn't bring that out as much, but making sure that you know centimeters, making sure that you know customary units and metric units, because that's what we do use in the United States. So metric, so that's meters, grams, and liters, and then also know customary. So you may need to know gallons, or you may need to know quarts and those things. So knowing how to use a ruler. So that's also measurement. And then as well as with those shapes, those basic understanding of those shapes, and then how they come into play in measurement. And the best thing you can also do, a lot of this stuff is online or in your child's textbook, but just a little tidbit. No, we are taking standards, national standards. We're not taking state-specific standards, but you can use your child's math book. You can use also online sites as well to get those examples. Next, we want to make sure that we understand multi-step word problems for our level 2 scholars, fractions, decimals, percentages, ratios, order operations, as well as geometry and measurement. So the best thing about this, you have the entire year to prepare for this test. If you are a 3rd grader, you're a 3rd grader this whole year, and then you take the test in July, as well as our 4th and 5th grade and our 6th grade scholars. So you make sure you prepare, take all these things in mind that we have said for the test taking skills. So lastly, few dates, we do take the Math Olympiad test in July 6th through the 10th is our National AIM Convention. So that's when we take our test. Registration, just a few little reminders. Make sure that you register for the AIM Convention, because that is required to take the Math Olympiad test. You need to register for the AIM Convention, as well as register within the Scholastic Motivation Ministries. I wanted to put the contact information on here. So what we mean by that, you register for the convention, then you register for the register through Scholastic Motivation Ministries. When we're in iSMM, or we're in the village, or we're in that area, you will register thanks to your jurisdictional coordinator. But a few things when it comes to level 1 and 2. Make sure you write your name clearly and neatly. We do ask you to write it, your name on each page, because when the papers are being carried, they could come apart or they could unstaple. You just never know. But we want you to make sure you write your name neatly. Make sure you have a contact number on there. And make sure you know your jurisdictional prelate. Make sure you know who your bishop is. And make sure and your bishop, I'm sorry. Make sure you know your jurisdiction Um, Sometimes with level 1 and 2, they know their bishop, and that can help us, but it helps if they know their jurisdiction, because we ask for them to write that on their paper, and we do that. So so when we know who is the winner, we can say their name. And when we just have a name and they're not there, if they, let's say they do a practice test and they're not there, then we're stuck with, okay, what jurisdiction, what state are they from? And we can say state, but as we know, if you're from the great state of Texas, there are wonderful jurisdictional privileges that you can and jurisdictions to choose from. So when you know your jurisdiction and you can write it on your test, then we know, okay, Texas Southwest 2, bam, this is where this child is from. They did not get their practice test reward, because we do a practice test reward. So, but we know what jurisdiction they're from and what jurisdictional coordinator we can talk to. And then if they know their bishop, sometimes that helps, because if they don't know their jurisdiction, then when they know their bishop, then we get like, okay, bishop, that's this jurisdiction. And then for the Math Olympiad at the closing ceremony, we want to shout out your jurisdiction. We want to make your bishop, we want to make your supervisor, the whole jurisdiction proud when we call out your jurisdiction. So we do ask for contact information. We do have the registration, but but we want it to be on the list just for immediate turnaround, so we could get that information to you. And if somebody else from your jurisdiction is testing, and we could get them your reward or award if you have one for the day. So contact information, eligibility requirements. This kind of gets confusing, especially when it's a fourth grader and a sixth grader, because even though I've been promoted to fifth grade, I know fourth grade content. So that is the test that I am taking. I don't want to take a level 2 test and I just finished fourth grade, because I'm not going to know everything on that test, and I'm going to be at a slight disadvantage. So what we don't want to happen is that we say, oh, I'm in the fifth grade and I take a level 2 test and I'm confused, my score is low, and I find out 3 days later that I took the wrong test. So if you're finishing the fourth grade and you're going to fifth grade, you take the fourth grade test. Same thing for sixth grade. I have finished sixth grade. I'm going to the seventh grade. I'm not taking a level 3 test. I'm going to take the level 2 test, because I just finished sixth grade. And the skills that Sister Jamese just listed for level 1 and 2 are going to change for level 3. So I want to make sure I take the right test, if that makes sense. So the year you finish is the level test that you take. Level 1 is the grades 3 and 4. You finish grades 3 and 4. Level 2, I finished grades 5th and 6th. Again, make sure you register for the annual convention that is in Baltimore, Maryland on this year. And it is July 6th through the 10th, as well as follow our social media pages. We do have the Scholastic Motivation Ministry page, which you are on right now, but we also have our SMM STEM education page, and we would love for you to follow us. And so with that being said, I thank you all for listening. I will bring in Dr. Lewis for any closing remarks.
Great job, Jamese. We'll be looking forward to another session with another one of our teams. Until then, we're going to say have a blessed day.
We are so thankful for God allowing you to support and to tune in today and celebrate these young scholars. and our dedicated staff members. We look forward to seeing you at the AIM convention. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to hit us up on Facebook or Instagram. We are always available. In the meantime, my prayer is that God continue to bless you richly, you keep your family safe, that you all are well and in good health, that long life be upon you, and that everybody around you has everything they need. Amen. Good night.